Did you know that reading more and better books creates opportunities for you to learn new skills, rise above your competition, and build a successful career? In the book, Read to Lead, written by Jeff Brown and Jesse Wisniewski, you'll learn why you need to read like your career depends on it, the 5 science-backed reasons why reading will help you build your career, how to absorb a book into your bloodstream, and a technique that can help double or even triple your reading speed. So, if you want to lead a more satisfied life, have more intelligent conversations, and broaden your mind, you need the book, Read to Lead. So go to readtoleadbook.com and buy a copy from your favorite book retailer today. Now, on with the show. Welcome to Beyond the Rut, the podcast that helps you get unstuck in the areas of faith, family, fitness, finances, and future possibility in the hopes of inspiring you and equipping you to make your own path and live the life you've always dreamed of beyond the rut. I'm your host, Jerry, and in just a moment, we're going to be joined by Tripp Bodenheimer. Tripp is a service member in the United States Air Force and host of the Shadows podcast. And together we're going to share some leadership stories, things that we've learned from our military service that have helped us in our lives to pursue the best lives we can live. And he's going to share with us why the Shadows podcast aims to share stories from folks like you to inspire others to live their best life as well. So sit back and relax unless you're being chased by a hungry, ravenous pack of wolves. In that case, keep running, and hopefully you're not the slowest guy in the group. So with that said, thank you for joining the show, and here we go. All right. Hey, Tripp, how are you doing this fine day, whatever day it is that somebody's listening to this?
I'm doing good, Jerry. How are you doing?
Doing well. Now, I guess you're somewhere in the Central Standard Time Zone, but I never asked, where are you based right now?
So I'm actually located in Montgomery, Alabama.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, just before the time zone changes into Georgia. Okay.
Exactly. Just I can head up to Atlanta and boom, I've hit the time zone change.
Nice. When I was in the Army, I was stationed at Fort Benning, and we would cross over to Phoenix City all the time. And I was like the big dork in the family. Like every time we crossed that state line, I'm like, Liv, we're going back in time. And then she just rolled her eyes. Like the first time she laughed, but I said it every time, and we went every weekend. And so I think one day she even just got tired of it. She's like, let me guess, we're going back to the future. It's like, how did you know? She's like,
starts beating you to it.
Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, do I say this every time? She goes, every time. I'm like, but we cross this state line all the time. She goes, I know. I love you, but yeah. I was like, oh boy, it's begun. We just got married. I'm already repeating my jokes. Oh man.
You do it 13 years later too, though.
Oh yeah. 19. Yeah. So she just lets me roll with it. If she knows it's a long story, she lets me know. Hey, you did tell me that one last week. I'm like, no, I didn't. She goes, okay, it was last year, but still, I know the story. I'm like, okay.
That's the worst feeling when someone's like, I've heard this before. I'm just gonna let you go ahead and finish it.
I'm like, yeah, exactly, because she knows I got to get out of my system, and so that's where I'm definitely lucky and married above myself. So married up. There we go. That's what we say. But really good to have you on here. We connected through a common friend of ours, Shay Sparks, which is odd because we also know Joe Bogdan and Scott Green from Llama Lounge, but we got connected through somebody completely different. And that seems to happen because I should have been the person who introduced Shay to those two guys. And no, they found her on their own. I was like, man, I'm a horrible friend, you guys.
A little inner circle, though.
Yeah. So it's just really cool. Like there's this group of folks who talk about investing in people and leadership and developing others. And we've just kind of formed up, like circle the wagons in a sense. Probably not the greatest analogy to use, but yeah. So definitely.
I'll take it, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely a good shout out to Shay. Thank you for connecting me with Tripp, and yeah, we're ready to rock and roll.
Shay is incredible. She's amazing. There's not a lot better people out there than Shay Sparks.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very genuine, giving heart and connector of people. And she definitely lives up to the show title that she has, which is the power of investing in others. Yeah.
She really does.
Yeah.
I was actually talking to her one day. We hopped on Zoom for just like a regular chat, and our conversation was so good. And she just goes like, you know what? I had a booking scheduled for later, but due to some weather issues that had to get canceled, you just want to hit record? And we just hit record, and I actually thought it came off pretty well. She was so just good at her questioning techniques and just the flow of the episode, especially for just no notice, just thinking she's hopping on there just to chat with me. But yeah, that speaks volumes to how amazing she is.
Yeah. And it's also why I think a lot of podcasters, when they jump on a Zoom call, even if it's just a call, they fire up the microphone set, the mixer, the noise gate if they've got one. They got their headset. Yeah, they're always ready. They're in the room with the treated acoustic panels if they can get in there. And it's like, man, that guy went overboard. And it's because of stuff like that. It's like, I had something fall through. Let's go ahead and hit record on this conversation. Yeah, let's do this. So, I
swear I'm gonna start taking my Yeti mic to airports and places with me just in case I meet someone. It's going to be ready to go.
I mean, I've got an ATR 2100 that I use for the road, and the kit I've got is very portable. So I knew I was recording today and recording from not my usual spot. So, but yeah, it pays off. I start going to conferences, taking my equipment with me, because you never know. You might run into somebody in the lobby and say, "Hey, I want to record this for my audience. Let's have a conversation here real quick." Mm-hmm. And we were fired up and have a conversation, and it's an episode. So you are currently in the Air Force, is that right?
Yes, sir. I actually I joined the Air Force in 2009, and I was had a very cushy job. I was working at Red Lobster, and I was I don't mean to brag, but I was a 2-time server of the year.
Oh, there you go.
In Sumter County. So it was a really big deal. And I like to tell the story that I was kind of like Michael Jordan in the 98 finals. I walked away at the top of my game.
There you go.
And I was like, I'm going to hang up the blue apron and I'm going to go join the Air Force. And at the time, our daughter was really young, my youngest daughter. And I was looking for more stability. I was tired of, waiting on tables. And I'd actually, before that, I'd gone to school for physical therapy, but it just wasn't my thing. I wasn't feeling it when I got out. And so, yeah, I ended up joining the Air Force. Took that dive, and they said your first base is going to be Davis Moth in Arizona. So I went from living in South Carolina to Arizona. I was working on computers. I loved it. I loved Arizona. I loved it so much. And family enjoyed it. We were there 4 years. And then I was actually about to get out of the military. And the Air Force said, well, if you hang on a little bit longer, we're going to send you to Germany for 4 years. So I ended up going to Germany. I couldn't turn that down. I was like, no, you got me. And there wasn't a whole lot of convincing. And then I went there, and we extended for 2 more. I got picked up as a Airman Leadership School instructor. So basically I was training brand new supervisors on how to lead, and did that job for 3 years over there. And then when I finished up, I was thinking I was going to be coming back to the comm career field. And I got asked, well, hey, we've got, the instructor's course down in Montgomery, Alabama, Enlisted Professional Military Education Instructor course. And that's like being a lottery pick in the NBA draft. I mean, only 3 of us teach here, and we teach all the instructors on the enlisted side of for PME in the Air Force. And they asked me if I wanted to come do it. And it was a dream job for me. And I was like, yes. The trade-off, I joke. I love Alabama. I really do. But I was like, the joke I make is I went from Germany to Montgomery. That was the only trade-off. But so for any listeners in Alabama or from Alabama, I love Alabama. Yeah. There's just a little humor there, but
yeah. On the same token, I mean, for all the other branches who think the Air Force doesn't really make any sacrifices, I mean, you went from Germany to Alabama. So
exactly. It's been a struggle. But it was funny though, because when we got here, my daughter had never, she pretty much grew up in Europe. Oh, so she's pretty much a European. So when she came over here, she's 11 years old, and riding down I-95 was a lot different than riding down the Autobahn.
Oh yeah.
And walking into Walmart the first time is a lot different than walking into an Audi or a bakery somewhere. Yeah. And it was, you really got to see culture shock firsthand, because it's just, it's so much to digest being here in the States compared to overseas, where it's a lot more relaxed. It's just everybody walks everywhere, and they're riding bikes, and, very minimal with things. And here it's like, okay, it's Saturday. What's our agenda? We've got to do 13 different things today. And it's just, that society. It's just go, go, go. So it was interesting to see through her eyes, the culture shock firsthand.
Yeah. I remember growing up in Japan as a kid.
My dad was in the Army also, and coming back to the U.S. and finding out things like Transformers was in English. Yeah. Like, what? No way. Like, I thought that was strictly a Japanese cartoon. How cool is that? I missed out on a lot, but also learned a lot. But I think it's appreciating those other cultures is really good. So having that ability to expose your kids to a world outside the United States is huge. You can't really give that kind of education in a school.
It's better than any textbook.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I'll stand by that through and through. Like, if I had a choice between keeping my child in school for 2 weeks or taking my child on a tour across the country and seeing landmarks and historical sites and just learning about cultures across the country and history of this country, that would hands down be far more memorable and make a bigger impact on my kids than keeping them in front of a textbook for 2 weeks.
Every time.
Yeah. Every time. So, looking back in your life, you mentioned that you'd gone to school for physical therapy and you realized it wasn't your thing. Where do you think you would be if you did a typical thing, which is, you know what, I got this degree. That's where the money is. I'm going to go into physical therapy.
You know, that's a really good question because I think about that one a lot because the spot I'm in right now was a struggle to get to. Yeah. It wasn't just, I walked into a recruiter's office and everything has been amazing since. But I remember I looked back and I was like, gosh, I wasted all that time in school. And I thought of it as I wasted time in school. And I was kind of chasing the white picket fence lifestyle. I was getting married. I was, had kids. I wanted to have just that cush job and live just like everybody else around me and go to the YMCA and work out and, go to pancake dinners and all this stuff. And I thought that was, going to be my life. But I didn't want that. I felt like I had more. I felt like I had so much more and nothing against that lifestyle. It's just, I felt like I have more to give, more potential. There was more for me to do. And I would listen to people talk about, traveling and going out and doing stuff and getting immersed in different cultures and just trying new things. And so whenever I started kind of branching away from physical therapy and started, working at Red Lobster was kind of a side job when I was doing physical therapy, but then I was actually making better money on tips than I was as a brand new physical therapy assistant. And so that was one of the reasons I kind of walked away from it. And then plus it was a really long commute. And this was 2005, 2006. This is when gas prices like spiked.
Oh yeah.
You remember that when gas prices, and there was lines everywhere for people to get gas. And I was driving, it was about a 60-minute commute one way. And I was like, I can't be doing this. This is not what I want to do. And I just didn't have that passion for it. I wasn't passionate. I couldn't picture myself doing it 20, 30 years. I would probably be grumpy. Yeah. I would probably, who knows, but I wouldn't have been happy. So, I decided just to kind of step away from it. And, one of my friends actually was supposed to go to the, recruiter's office in the Air Force, and we were making salads one day at lunch at Red Lobster. And he's like, hey man, I'm going to the recruiter's office. Do you want to come over there with me? And I said, yeah, what the heck? I'll go over there. And this just goes to show how you don't really know what your plan is in life. It kind of gets shown to you. And I showed up and he wasn't there. He stood me up and I'm standing out in the parking lot and I'm like, well, I'll walk in and at least talk to this guy. And I walked in and I walk out the door like, wow, I might be joining the Air Force at 27 years old. This is interesting. Okay. So yeah. And then the rest is history.
Wow. Do you still give that guy a lot of grief for standing you up, or you're like, nah, life's good?
I hadn't talked to him in a while, but it worked out perfect. I've always wondered what happened if he would have joined the same time as me, like where we would have been like career wise. But yeah, it worked out perfect.
It's crazy how that works out though. It's just, I can think of a number of people in my own life where they're like, hey, we got to go do this. This will be awesome. And you show up ready to go. They're nowhere to be seen. And you're like, what where did Johnny go? Like, oh, Johnny said he got something else going on. I'm like, well, we're here. And it turns out to be like the best thing ever. But then Johnny misses out. And you're like, hey, you should have shown up. But, yeah. Yeah, I wanted to bring up the thing about like, what if you had done physical therapy? Because one of the things we come across with our audience and our target audience as well, specifically, I should say, is they're kind of stuck in this rut of a career that they got into that career because they were kind of told that's the thing to do. You're going to become a doctor. Why? Well, your dad was a doctor, and his dad before him was a doctor, and that's the way we get out of poverty. That's just the way we make money, and we succeed by being doctors. But then the person wants to be an artist. They want to write novels, or you're going to become a nurse. Why? Because that's where the money is. And it's like, do I want to be a nurse? Do I want to wipe people's rear ends and change out wound dressings and console people? And it's something that kind of just I guess I wouldn't say touch a nerve, but hit home for me, because I was a pre-med student for my bachelor degree, and I think my faculty advisor picked up on it. Like, Jerry, your GPA is barely a 2.0, but you're tutoring people who are getting A's and B's. Do you really want to be a doctor? And I'm like, of course I want to be a doctor. Like the answer I thought I was supposed to give. He's like, maybe you want to teach. I'm like, no, teachers are for those who can't. And I'm saying this to a teacher. And he's like, okay, fine. And then he just signed my paper and sent me on my way. And it was like maybe a decade or so later, I'm thinking about going to get a master's degree, talking it over with my wife. And she just kind of looks at me and says, you need something in education. And I'm like, what does she know? Other than, she's been paying attention to me for a decade. And then I realized, oh, maybe she's onto something here. And maybe my faculty advisor was right. And it's just neat that folks kind of notice things in you that you may not notice in yourself. And I'm going to try to seg this into your own show. That you've got this podcast called the Shadows Podcast, and you share the people's stories, and the intent behind that is to help inspire people to get outside of their comfort zones. And I think that's why people get trapped in these careers they don't enjoy, and pursuing these fields of study they don't really have a passion for, because it's kind of what they thought the world expects of them. And it's the comfort zone. This is the world we know. This is how you get successful. And this is the only way it works. Yeah. Deep down in that individual, but I want to do something else. How do I do that and be successful at doing it, and surviving off of it or thriving off of it? And so always do you see the Shadows Podcast pulling people out of that comfort zone to do that? What are some stories that stand out to you as well?
Well, the first part, I totally agree about getting comfortable being uncomfortable. That's like probably, if I had like one motto in life, that has been the one. My dad was a lawyer. Growing up, I thought I had to be a lawyer. I thought that was going to be what I was, born to do. I thought it was, you pass the torch down to the next generation. Because I had so many people that, parents worked at a furniture store. They worked at a furniture store. They had an insurance company. The kids work at the insurance company. And I just thought that was, my trajectory. And that's kind of what, I love my mom to death, but it was always like, you've got to be this, you've got to do this. And that's kind of where I fell into physical therapy, is other people's expectations. And you're never going to be comfortable with other people's expectations. You've got to be comfortable with your own. And it really wasn't until, I joined the military and I got deep into my career. I wasn't happy working in the comm squadron, and I'm going to be back there in a year and a half. And maybe it's changed because, the situation's totally different. I've grown a lot, but, I got asked to be an Airman Leadership School instructor, and I almost turned it down. I went into the office of the individual who offered me the job, and I said, I don't think I'm good for that. I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. I can't speak in public. I'm not a good public speaker. I'm very self-conscious about a lot of things. So I just, I'm not the sharpest tool in the sheds. I don't think I'm going to be able to get up there and teach. And they didn't take that as an answer. They said, well, I'm taking that as you're going to sleep on it and come back tomorrow. And they said, just remember this. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. If your gut is telling you that, I don't know if this is a good move. If you get that little feeling, it's probably telling you, it's going to pay off so much if you take that opportunity, if you jump at it. Because right now you're comfortable, and I think COVID showed that a lot too. People were really comfortable and stuck in their habits. And so I came out the next day. I said, you know what? I'll do it. I'll take the job. And I overcame every single one of my fears. And the journey there is never easy. The journey there is never going to be, just smooth sailing. You're going to have second guessing. You're going to have those moments where you're just in tears, or you're like, I have messed up. I have made the worst decision possible. That is okay. because you know you're doing the right thing. You're just leaving that comfort zone, and it's hard to let go of it. And I also figure I have one life walking on this earth. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be happy doing it. And teaching was the best thing that ever happened to me. I didn't see it at the moment. And, like I said, going back to comm, I don't know what my future holds, but it may be the best thing to happen. But with the podcast, it was something that when COVID kicked off, I was teaching in residence over at Gunter Annex, and we hopped online one day, and it was pretty much like, hey, we're not going to be able to teach in residence for the foreseeable future. Oh, and I had no idea what that even meant for my job. I was like, well, what do we do? And I remember logging off that day, and I was like, I don't have a job. I can't teach anybody on there. And
it's like how every military school is done, right?
Yeah. So I was like, how in the world am I going to teach on this thing called Zoom or Teams or WebEx? Like, how in the world are we going to do this? And so the next week we got on, and our commandant was like, we're going to figure this thing out. We're going to teach on these platforms. So I started doing some like experimenting with the different platforms. And I have a lesson, 5 voices, discover your leadership voice. And I said, let me throw this out on Facebook and see if people bite, and I can test it out, and I can teach on a couple of these platforms. And I offered it for free, and people were jumping on it, and I got a huge response. And so what I started doing was I started scheduling people, hopping on, talking to people, and I would connect with different people, and I would hear their stories. And I was like, well, this is really cool. I can reach out to people all around. So then I went on, we were talking about Joe Bogdan. I went on the Llama Lounge, and I recorded an episode on their show, and we finished, and I kind of had that little itch. I'm like, okay, I've been teaching online. Now I just recorded on a podcast. This is kind of cool. I think I could do it. Yeah. And then I just went crazy. I got the mic and the ring lights and all this other stuff. But I sat down and talked to my wife, and I was like, I think I want a podcast, but I want to do something different. And I didn't want to do, let's get on here and talk about mindfulness or diversity or just some topic, because so many people do that better than me. Yeah. And I just wanted to think outside of the box a little bit. So we came up with the concept, the Shadows podcast. And the idea basically is everybody has a shadow, and everyone does. And it follows you from cradle to grave. And your darkest moments, that shadow, you can't necessarily see it, but it's still there. And it's going to be a constant reminder of everything you've gone through. But then when your highest moments at your pinnacle, that shadow seems larger than life. But it always fades back to you. And we were like, we can get people's stories, like their obstacles they've had to overcome, taking chances and how they succeeded because they stepped outside of their comfort zone. They were going to let society dictate. And that's the problem too. We let society dictate what's acceptable, like what's considered success, as opposed to our own internal success. Yeah. And so I said, our goal is for each episode to motivate one listener. And I know for downloads and stuff, that's not the best way to go, but that's what we're looking for. We're looking for, we have one episode, we really want it to resonate with somebody. And honestly, I've gotten really good feedback from guests, but the best feedback we've got is from listeners, but the best feedback I've received is from our guest. Oh. And that's been the really interesting part is I did this thinking, like so many people are going to reach out and be like, oh my gosh, this episode really helped me. And we get that probably 3 to 4 people per episode. Someone will reach back and say, wow, this, and I mean, they'll hit me up directly and say, this person has been through the exact same thing I've been through. I need it. But the cool part, and the part we didn't expect, is that a lot of the actual guests that we interview will reach out to us and say, wow, that really struck a chord with me when you asked this question, or wow, I'd never thought about this in this context before. And now that totally has changed my perspective on life. And just interviewed someone the other day, and one of their family members reached out to me afterwards and said, wow, you really got them thinking on this one question. And we actually had like a really long conversation about it afterwards. And that's really cool to hear, because you're not once again, you don't know what direction anything that you're going to do is going to take, but it's going to help someone out and it's going to benefit somebody. So to hear that it's actually helping the guest as well as the listeners was really incredible. And that's just kind of been the cool part of this whole thing.
My recording session last month, I had a guest say that to me, probably the first time, which made me think, gosh, does this mean I finally arrived as an interviewer?
Yeah. I know. And the course I'm at, we teach questioning techniques and how to interview people. And so, of course I'll get you had great use of open-ended questions. You really dug stuff deep. But when they can say that you like hit something personal and the friendships, you may hit someone as kind of or reach out to them as a one-off, like, hey, do you want to come on and be the guest? But then the cool part is, when that person ends up becoming like a really good friend. And I think probably the best example I have is Jamie Valvano, and her father, legendary basketball coach at North Carolina State, Jim Valvano. And her and I got connected. We logged in for like a little pre-meeting, instantly hit it off. I mean, she's an amazing person, just so much energy. And she's like her father with that. And you could talk to her all day long. And we scheduled the recording. We hopped on for the recording. Just like you and I, it felt like we talked forever before we even hit record. We're like, look, we're going to get nowhere if we don't hit the record button. But then we've stayed in contact since then. We have, I consider her like a good friend now. And she had told me, the one thing that your podcast showed me was the power of storytelling. And this was around the time of her dad's birthday that we were talking. And she said, you've really made me value storytelling and sharing his story and stuff. And to me, I could hang up the show right now and be like, that was a win. That was really cool. That was a cool experience and made some amazing connections. And we were talking about the network, how like your network of connectors and connections has grown since the pandemic kicked off. It's incredible, and wouldn't have had an opportunity to do this probably. It probably would have been, going back to the whole theme of this, taking a chance. It probably would have just been a thought in my mind of, one day when I retire, I'm going to possibly start a podcast, but just got to the point where I was like, let's just do it. Let's just pull the Band-Aid off and just get it done. Let's see where this goes.
So they say the person who waits for perfect conditions never gets anything done.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I don't know if the Air Force says this, but in the Army, there was a phrase, no plan ever survives first contact with the enemy. And it's true, because the moment you engage other people, it's like, well, they have their own plans too, and it's going to throw a wrench in yours. But somehow you made me think about all the folks that, they have it in their mind that the way to get through life is you go to school, you get good grades, you get a good job, you retire in 20 years, and now you have a pension. And it's after that retirement that you finally get to go out and live. You get to travel the world. You get to visit all your family that you ignored for 20, 30 years. You
spend time with grandkids.
Yeah. And what I found is, and what I've heard, and this is mainly, I guess, wisdom coming from folks who have gone that route. They were in, when I was in my early 30s, hearing from folks who were in their 50s and 60s, hitting that retirement age, and just saying to me, Jerry, if you can travel now, go do it. If you can go pursue this now, go do it. Because when you hit this age, your body's going to start falling apart. You got to be close to hospitals. You're going to be on medication. And I was like, I don't want any of that. And they're like, well, if you take care of yourself now, maybe you could avoid the medication part, but you'll regret not having seen the sights while you're still young to climb that mountain, to jump on that plane and go at a moment's notice and stuff like that. And it was just such an eye opener of, gosh, I really wish, and not just wish, but what would it take for me to go backpacking, for example? So that's a hobby I took up a few years ago, and I was just like, I want to do long trails. I want to do a through hike. I want to do this. And it was just like, start with some overnighters, start with some 2 and 3 night trips. And now it's like, people think I'm an actually good backpacker, but I forget stupid stuff like drinking water. So
hydrating.
Yeah, hydrating. Like, I know better. But it's like, oh, like a creek, I should probably top off my water. And then I walk another 2 miles, like, I should have topped off my water 2 miles ago. Now there's no river for another 3 miles. What is wrong with me?
It's funny you say that, though, about the traveling piece, because we went all around Europe. I mean, when we were there, I know this will make me sound a little snooty, but we went to like 27 countries when we were in Germany.
That's the thing to do in Europe. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember there were certain cities like Rome, and we love to go to the cities and just walk around and explore. And I believe it was Rome or Pompeii or somewhere in Italy, but we were so worn out and tired. And I was telling my wife, I was like, we're in our mid-30s and I'm worn out and tired.
Yeah.
And I'm in the best shape of my life. And I said, imagine when we're doing this and we're 65, 70 years old, we're going to get dropped off on a metro, see the Coliseum, and head back to the hotel and take a nap. And I was like, there's not going to be this walking around forever. But definitely what you said, get out and do it. Because I think a lot of people, they do look at retirement and they say, you know, when I'm 65, that's going to be my time to go out and travel and do this and that. But enjoy it while you're at your peak, and your health is where it is. And, you know, you can get out and you're like, you know, that other site is 2 blocks down the road. Let's just go ahead and walk over to it and enjoy the culture. And the best stuff we got was just from walking around and finding a restaurant that was just around the corner from, you know, hiking from one excursion to the next. So
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
The time's now. Yeah. In
and
my
you get
opinion,
that bug, and it's an itch that you can't get rid of. I've been going crazy. I'm like, I need to go to New Orleans and Kansas City and St. Louis and all these places since I've been over here. So I'm dying to get out of the house.
Yeah. When I travel, I prefer, this freaks my family out because they love their comfort zone when it comes to food. And I'm the guy that says, that's a hole in the wall that is only in this town. We should go.
Best places.
Yeah.
That is the best places to eat.
It is a junky looking building, but it's surrounded by cars. And, you know, it's a sign that there's good food there. And, you know, go check it out. It's something that's local. It's got its flavor, and you pick up some of that local culture. And, to me, those are the things that stick out. If I go to a chain, it's like, I don't remember one Chili's from another. They're all the same.
No, we were in Rome. And we were like kind of in the central area, and there was all these restaurants everywhere, and they looked, you know, glamorous and everything. And this older gentleman came out, and he kind of like grabbed my wife, and very sketchy. He was like, "Psst, come here." And she follows him, of course. Yeah. Follow him down a dark alley, and they go down this alley, and I'm in the back, you know, cause I'm trying to like sway them. I'm like, no, we're not. No, we're going this way. And of course, my girls are following my wife. So they're following this guy. And no exaggeration, this was a really long, dark alley. And so I'm walking behind them, and I'm like, this is not going to end good. And he takes them to this little restaurant and points to it. And he's like, this is where you need to go. We go in there. Still to this day, if you ask any of the 4 of us, that was the best place we've ever eaten. Yeah. And never would have found it if we wouldn't have followed some older gentleman down a dark alley. Not suggesting that to anybody, any of your listeners, but
But I mean, the metaphor though around like taking a leap of faith, like your wife runs into a total stranger, who she probably figured out very quickly. This is a local who knows the local scene and probably had a conversation you weren't privy to. And she trusts the guy enough to go and take this leap of faith down a dark alley. Then the trust your daughters had in your wife to follow them. And you like, this is how trust. We die. Yeah. This is how the Bodenheimer family.
It was like the scene where the Joker comes out on the Wayne family in the alley. That's what it felt like. I was like, this is not good. You're
waiting for the guy to turn around in Italian and say, "Do you ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight?"
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's automatically what went through my head. I'm like, well, this is it. But it was all worth it. Got a heck of a calzone, so it was good.
Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, how many of us have something that was memorable or life-changing because we did take a leap of faith? We did trust that somebody else was guiding us from a position of experience and knowledge, and in that trust opened up so many doors for us.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, and the flip side, how many of us close those doors because we're like, nope, I'm not going down that route with you. And there's this phrase that was also said a lot in the Army, especially around basic rifle marksmanship. And I don't know if the Air Force has the same one either, but like when it comes to like the M16 rifle, it has a maximum effective range of like 550 meters, point target, I think up to 300 meters, a couple other things. When it came to giving excuses, the drill sergeants drill you in, and this is something that stays in the culture of the Army throughout, and that is the moment you give an excuse, that drill sergeant tells you right away, there is no, the maximum effective range of an excuse is 0 meters. So go ahead and drop and do some push-ups and then fix the thing that you just gave me an excuse about. And you're like, man, that guy's a jerk. And then you run into another person you try to give an excuse to. And that drill sergeant's like, what's the maximum effective range of an excuse? And you're like, 0.0 meters, drill sergeant. All right, go ahead and do some push-ups. And so I got really good at push-ups, by the way. But you start to learn that in that field, and it turns out in any field, the person who gives the excuse is bringing 0 solutions to yourself or to anybody else. Does the Air Force have like a similar saying to that? Like the maximum effective range of an excuse is 0 meters, or how does that resonate with you?
I haven't really heard like one in the Air Force for excuses. I've always heard the one that excuses are only good for turning into a secretary at the front desk at a school. Oh, that's the only time they're good. But I've never been much of a excuse person. I always look at someone who, it's almost like a credibility thing for me. If someone has an excuse, it's like, okay, but what? And they like to lean on that. They like to hold on to that and say, but it's because of this. I'm like, okay, but what else? Like, what are you going to do about it? And always have a fix action. Don't just have an excuse, have a fix action or what you're going to do to improve it or make it better. And that's something I've really have, I guess, through maturity, because Tripp Bodenheimer 10 years ago was full of excuses. I had excuses for everything. I had an excuse why I was late. I had an excuse why this happened, but I've learned to just, not be resistant, just be responsive and just say, it's because of this. This is what happened. And, it won't happen again. Or I'm going to fix it and move forward with it. But that the more resistant we get and push back, I think it diminishes our credibility a little bit.
And it's just missed opportunities too. I mean, I know the moment somebody gives me an excuse, it's like, well, you're kind of useless right now in this situation. I need to go to somebody who's got a solution. And that's me putting like my director hat on. It's like,
I always tell the students in the class, I'm like, your car, I was like, you're supposed to be at class at 8:00. Your car never wants to start at 7:55, 8:00. I was like, 8:00. It never wants to start at 7:10. So I get your excuse, but just own it. Just say I overslept. Just own up to it.
Yeah. Set the alarm. Actually set the alarm. Don't drink the whole 12-pack. Cut it back to 11. That's what he told me that once. I wasn't the one he told it to. He said it to somebody else. But anyway, I'm like trying to convince the world I'm not a drinker. Actually, I'm not. But so you got the podcast, the Shadows podcast. It showcases stories of people who they tell their story, and from that, we learn what we can take away from their story and apply it to our own. We talked about the maximum effective range of an excuse, the ability to trust somebody, to take a leap of faith. Any final words of wisdom for those listening?
Yeah, final words is, just get out there and see things, do things different, change things up. So many times, and I've been guilty of it. I mean, here, even this past year, of just getting stuck in the motions of doing things over and over. And sometimes you need that little spark just to go out and take a vacation somewhere, take a road trip somewhere, plan, that vacation. My wife and I were having dinner the other night. My wife was like, you know what? We're going to go to New Orleans. Nice. We're gonna do this. We're gonna start going here, and just start changing things up. Don't get comfortable and find yourself like we talked about, where you're looking at your life in hindsight, saying, "Gosh, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that different." You shouldn't have those "I wish I would have" moments. Yeah. You say, "I wish I could go back and do that again. I wish I could experience that one more time." There's so much of the world to see, so many different cultures. I think oftentimes we get kind of stuck on social media, and we get stuck on trying to, compare ourselves to other people. Social media is beautiful. Social media is dangerous too.
Yes.
And if you don't know how to use it, and there's been no training guide that's come along with it. So people have just dove in. They say, look at this family. They're living an amazing life. We don't have that. I need to live that. I want to live that life. Yeah. And you start comparing yourselves to what other people are doing. And it's not fair on you. Live your own life. Go your own trails, do your own things, find your own hobbies, and be passionate about what you do every single day. Even a job. The second you say, I have to go to work, that's not a good sign. When you say I get to go to work, you know you're in the right spot.
And if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, so they can find me several different ways. I've got different aliases out there for whatever reason. I don't know why I did it that way, but LinkedIn, I'm Edward Bodenheimer III. Facebook, just Tripp Bodenheimer. And same on Instagram as well. I believe on Instagram, it's like Bodie82 or 82 Bodie. It's one of the, I'll get you the right one. And then Shadows Podcast, I'll send you the link tree that we have for that. But we're available on most podcast platforms. I don't think there's a whole lot that we're not available on. And we got Facebook, Instagram. We got a lot of Instagram's kind of for like our bonus content, but we got a YouTube page as well. And we've had some amazing guests, and we got some incredible guests on the way as well.
Tripp, thank you so much for being on the show. And yeah, I look forward to staying in touch with you and collaborating in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Be sure to check out the show notes at beyondtherut.com/263. There you'll find links to Tripp's website, to the Shadows podcast, as well as some past episodes, like the interview we did with the Llama Lounge, because it turns out these guys run in small packs as well. So Tripp knows the guys from the Llama Lounge, Joe Bogdan, Scott Green, and the other two guys who I've never really met, actually, to be honest. Now, the best way you can pay us back, to pay me back on the show, is to pay me forward. So share me with a friend, a family member, a coworker, or that neighbor across the street. There you have it. And on top of all that, I'm so glad that you joined me this week. And I look forward to joining you again next week as we bring another guest to this show. I believe it's going to be Ron Worley, who wrote the book From Ditches to Riches. He's going to talk about how he just had a very rough life, and from there turned things around, runs multiple businesses, but one day had the widowmaker of all heart attacks, somehow survived, and was told by his doctors, most survivors of this type of heart attack have less than 5 years left to live. Well, this is year number 5, and I had a chance to have him on the show, and here we are just defying the odds. So, until then, go live life beyond the rut. Take care. Most people aim for nothing and hit it with amazing accuracy. I would say almost 100%. And chances are you're tired of going through that. You want some direction, you want some purpose, you want some significance in the life that you're living. Well, I firmly believe that you get what you measure. And if you're not measuring any milestones or progress, and you have set timelines for that, then you really don't know if you're on track or not, or if that your plan is even aligned with the things you value. So I've developed a tool called Measure It to Make It. Because if you want to make the life that you've always dreamed of living happen, you have to have ways of measuring it to know that you're on the right track. So go to beyondtherut.com/goals. There you can download a free tool called Measure It to Make It. It'll guide you through the whole process of identifying what matters most to you. So one more time, that website is beyondtherut.com/goals, and go design the life that you want to live beyond the rut. Take care.
Beyond the rut.
Where do we send the royalties?
There's none. It's yours.